In 1519, Hernán Cortez, a Spanish conquistador, set foot on the shores of Mesoamerica with a small force of 600 men, driven by dreams of gold, glory, and the spread of Christianity. His arrival would mark the beginning of a brutal clash of worlds, forever changing the fate of the Aztec Empire. Cortez landed in a fractured land. The Aztec Empire, ruled by Moctezuma II, was powerful but resented by many subject peoples, like the Tlaxcalans. Cortez, cunning and ambitious, exploited these divisions. He forged alliances with the Tlaxcalans, swelling his ranks, and marched toward Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, a city of 200,000, rivaling Europe's grandest. The first encounter between Cortez and Moctezuma in November 1519 was tense but diplomatic. Moctezuma, unsure if Cortez was a god or a threat, welcomed him into Tenochtitlan with gifts of gold. But Cortez had other plans. He took Moctezuma hostage in his own palace, using him to control the city. This act of deception set the tone for what was to come. Diplomacy soon turned to violence. In 1520, during a religious festival called Toxcatl, Cortez' lieutenant, Pedro de Alvarado, unleashed a massacre. Unarmed Aztec nobles, celebrating their gods, were slaughtered in the temple courtyard. The streets ran red and the Aztecs rose in rebellion. Moctezuma, caught between his people and the Spanish, died soon after, possibly killed by his own subjects or the invaders. By 1521, Cortez and his Tlaxcalan allies laid siege to Tenochtitlan. The city, once a marvel of canals and pyramids, was starved and bombarded. Tens of thousands perished as the Spanish razed temples and homes. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, conquistador, later wrote of streets piled with bodies, a grim testament to the Conquest's brutality. With Tenochtitlan in ruins, the Spanish turned to reshaping Aztec souls. They saw the Aztecs' religion, centered on gods like Huitzilopochtli and practices like human sacrifice, as barbaric. Driven by a zealous belief in their divine mandate, backed by papal decrees, the Spanish set out to convert the Aztecs to Christianity, often by force. Gloria divinitatis et gladi. Franciscan and Dominican friars arrived, baptizing thousands daily in mass ceremonies. Fray Toribio de Benavente, known as Motolinia, boasted of baptizing entire crowds at once, often without teaching Christian doctrine. For the Aztecs, these rituals were bewildering. Baptism was not a choice, but a demand tied to survival. Refusal could mean punishment, enslavement, or death. Aztec nobles were targeted first, forced to set an example. Ixtlilxochitl II of Texcoco became Hernando, and Moctezuma's heirs were renamed Don or Doña with Spanish titles. Baptism symbolized submission to Spanish rule, stripping away indigenous identity. Temples like the Templo Mayor were demolished, replaced by churches such as the Cathedral of Mexico City. Sacred codices were burned, erasing centuries of Aztec knowledge. Beyond religion, the Aztecs faced relentless exploitation. The encomienda system granted Spanish settlers control over indigenous labor. The Aztecs were forced to toil in mines and fields, enduring brutal conditions. Smallpox brought by the Europeans ravaged the population. By 1600, 80% of central Mexico's indigenous people had perished. The Spanish saw this as God's will, but for the Aztecs, it was unimaginable loss. Despite the oppression, some Aztecs resisted quietly, blending Christian and indigenous beliefs in a practice called syncretism. This frustrated Spanish clergy, who demanded total conversion. The Florentine Codex, compiled by Aztec survivors, captures their grief. A people betrayed, their ruined city, a shadow of its former glory. The Spanish conquest, driven by greed, power, and religious fervor, shattered the Aztec world. Forced baptisms and brutal treatment were not just acts of conversion, but tools of cultural erasure. Yet, the resilience of the Aztecs endures in Mexico's blended heritage. Their story reminds us of the human cost of conquest and the strength of those who survived.